forget philosophy, forget morality, forget gods, forget all of it just for a second. I want you to picture a scene. It's dark, it's cold, and one of the very first hominids is standing alone. Suddenly, something new flickers to life behind its eyes. It's awareness. It looks at its own hands, feels the wind cutting against its skin, and then it looks up at the vast, silent, star-filled night. But the feeling that washes over it isn't wonder. It's not enlightenment. It's horror. It's the sudden, bone-deep, crushing realization that the universe is completely, totally indifferent. It doesn't care that this creature is cold or afraid or even alive. There is no grand plan. There's no guiding hand. There is only the void. This isn't just a bad thought. It's a wound. A primal fear so deep it threatens to break this new consciousness before it can even begin. And right there, in that moment of pure existential terror, the most important human question was born. Not, how do I get food? Or how do I build shelter? But what does any of this mean? From that first wound, we have been defined by a single, desperate choice. Do we accept a meaning that's given to us, or do we bear the terrifying burden of creating one ourselves? Okay, so let's unpack that. That's a heavy place to start.
It is.
We're really diving into what feels like the core conflict of being human. This tension between inherited meaning, the stuff that's just handed to you, and the meaning we have to build ourselves.
Right, and we're looking at how that dilemma really shapes everything. It's not just an abstract idea.
No, it's in our minds, our brains, even how our societies are structured.
And that's the key.
Yeah.
This deep dive is moving beyond just the philosophy of it all. We're getting into the neurobiology, the psychology, the real ethics of that choice.
So for you listening, it's about the difference between finding meaning that's already there.
Discovering it, yes.
Yeah.
The given type, or, on the other hand, forging it, creating it yourself, almost in defiance of a meaningless universe.
And that choice is basically a survival strategy.
It's the foundation of psychological survival. Absolutely.
You know, it's interesting because the need for a story, for a narrative, it's not just a nice to have. The material suggests it's an absolute necessity.
An adaptive necessity. It's a biological function, really, that stops us from, well, existential collapse.
So that feeling of terror that nihilism can bring up, it's not just in our heads, it's biological.
There's a very real biological reason for it. Think about it from an evolutionary standpoint. The human brain is essentially a prediction engine.
A prediction engine?
Yeah, it's wired for pattern recognition. It's always looking for connections, trying to build a structured reality. So meaning, in that sense, is a survival tool. It's a psychological anchor that lets us impose order on chaos. It fights randomness.
You're saying if our brain couldn't build some kind of meaning, we might just freeze?
In a way, yes. There's a cognitive framework for this called active inference.
Okay.
The simple version is that your brain is constantly running simulations. And narratives, the stories we tell ourselves, are there to generate and manage predictions about what happens next.
So you can act.
So you can act effectively.
Oh.
And survive. So our stories are always, in a way, for the future, even when they're about the past. They help us chop up this continuous stream of experience into neat little event sequences so we can see cause and effect and anticipate what's coming. It's a huge evolutionary advantage.
I think that drive is so clear in the car accident scenario.
Yeah.
You have this trauma victim, right? And what happened was just chaos, meaningless physics.
Exactly. Just pure physics. But the victim's brain immediately goes to work. It starts constructing a narrative, generating explanations.
Like, this was a sign I need to slow down.
Or, I survived because I'm meant to do something important. The mind cannot live with pure random chaos. It is, and the sources say this over and over, biologically terrifying.
So if the mind is this narrative building machine, where is that engine room in the actual physical brain?
It's largely rooted in what's called the default mode network. The DMN.
The DMN. And that's what builds our epistemic self. Can you break that term down a little?
Sure. The epistemic self is, well, it's the stable story of you.
Yeah.
The DMN weaves together your memories of specific events.
Episodic stuff.
Right. With your general knowledge, your values, your beliefs, and it creates a single coherent internal story. That story is you. It's the structure that makes you feel like a continuous person through time.
And when that structure gets disrupted, the consequences are huge. We see this in certain brain disorders.
We do. In advanced Alzheimer's, for example, the DMN is impaired. And what you see isn't just memory loss, it's a profound loss of sense of self.
Because the mechanism that weaves the memories into an identity is broken.
It collapses. The narrative wasn't a luxury. It was the entire foundation of who they were.
So, okay, we have this deep biological need for structure. How did we, as a species, solve that problem throughout history?
For most of history, the solution was pretty universal. It was given meaning.
Religion, mythology, tradition.
Exactly. A pre-built reality. It's a shield against that biological terror of the void we talked about. It offers incredible psychological comfort.
The original shield. But if it's a shield, does it also become a kind of cage? What's the real appeal there?
The appeal is certainty. It completely eliminates the need for what you could call existential improvisation.
You don't have to make up the rules as you go.
They're prepackaged. And crucially, it takes way less cognitive effort than constantly questioning and rebuilding your entire reality from scratch. It provides a fixed moral structure.
And in that structure, suffering has a purpose. That's a huge one.
It's massive. When you lose that, suffering just feels cruel and random.
Right.
But given meaning provides a kind of cosmic justice. Terrible things aren't pointless. They're a test or a punishment or, a path to a better afterlife. It makes pain meaningful, which is profoundly reassuring.
That clarity, it sounds so appealing, but there has to be a price for giving up that improvisation.
The price is autonomy. Inherited morality tends to prioritize obedience over individual moral reasoning. You get clarity, sure, but you limit your own ethical autonomy.
And that's where the shield becomes fragile, because the whole thing depends on the foundation, the divine text, the tradition being unshakable.
Exactly. And if something comes along to challenge that foundation, like science or exposure to other cultures, the whole structure becomes vulnerable to what Kierkegaard called existential collapse.
Which is pretty much the story of the modern era, right? Western society, starting with the Enlightenment, began to actively reject that inherited meaning.
And push us toward created meaning. Specifically, a doctrine that's been called expressive individualism.
Okay, expressive individualism. In simple terms, what is that?
It's the idea that your true identity comes from a unique, deep inner core of feeling, and your life's purpose is to express that core outwardly and have it recognized.
So the highest value is being true to yourself. Authenticity.
Autonomy is the highest value, yes. And this completely changes the purpose of everything, especially relationships.
How so?
Well, if autonomy is king, relationships aren't about duty or fixed roles anymore. They're seen as these collections of atomized wills.
Meaning everyone is just out for themselves.
It can lean that way. A relationship is judged by how well it serves my self-defining goals. How well does it help my unique core unfold? This can make our default stance towards others, well, potentially adversarial.
And you can see how that transforms social conflicts. The very idea of victimhood changes. It's not just about material oppression anymore, like a Marxist view of economics.
That's right. It becomes about psychological oppression. Anything that blocks your path to authenticity, that prevents you from expressing your inner self, can be framed as a profound injustice. Oppression becomes deeply subjective.
Which leads to this huge ethical dilemma. Modern society tries to have it both ways. We want to identify objective evil. We all agree injustice is bad, but we demand subjective good.
We want moral certainty for the things we hate, but total freedom for the things we want. It shows we've lost our moral horizons. Without that transcendent source, that given meaning, we don't have a shared toolkit for setting ethical boundaries.
And this brings us right back to the psychological cost, the terrifying burden of having to create it all yourself. That anxiety of being unmoored from any source of morality.
And having the sole, overwhelming responsibility of choosing how to respond to a meaningless universe.
You see this perfectly in that scenario about Lars, the designer. He's told he's completely free. He can design his own life, his own purpose.
And he finds that freedom paralyzing. It's crushing. His anxiety comes from having to invent a why for his life. A why for designing logos that can somehow compete with the cosmic depth of the meaning his grandparents inherited.
He has to build a cathedral out of thin air.
And that's an enormous, exhausting weight.
The modern tragedy, being told you can be anything and realizing that anything includes being crushed by the anxiety of infinite choice.
And this burden isn't just existential, it's social. It gets amplified when all these individually created meanings start clashing in public spaces.
Give us an example of how that plays out.
Okay, think about the park conflict scenario. You have one group, Group A. Their created meaning is all about community, celebration, big, noisy festivals in the park.
And Group B.
Their created meaning is the opposite. It's about quiet contemplation, individual reflection, preserving the natural peace of that same park.
Both feel their meaning is totally valid.
For them, yes. They're both operating from that highest value of self-expression. But their created meanings are mutually exclusive when you apply them to a shared resource. There's no common ground.
We've lost the collective mechanism for cooperation that given meaning provided automatically.
That is the core challenge of pluralism built on autonomy. And interestingly, going back to the neurobiology, your brain is actively struggling to make sense of all this.
How do we know that?
Neuroimaging shows that when we shift from just remembering something, what they call autobiographical, remembering to trying to derive meaning from it, autobiographical reasoning, the brain has to recruit extra resources. Semantic processing centers light up to help integrate this new meaning and update our self-concept for the future.
So it's the difference between reading a chapter of your life versus writing the moral of the story.
That's a perfect analogy. It shows that created meaning isn't passive. It's a complex, energy-intensive cognitive struggle. It's hard work.
So wrapping this all up, what does it all mean? This huge philosophical choice, taking a pre-built shield or holding it yourself, is really the central challenge of modern life.
It is. The evolutionary imperative is for coherence, for a predictable story. And that narrative, whether you inherit it or create it, is a mechanism for survival, for you as an individual and for us as a society.
And the brain just needs a consistent story, even a negative one.
Even a negative one. A coherent story of hopelessness, for instance, still provides predictive accuracy. It's distressing, but it's not chaotic. It's the structure of the narrative, not necessarily its positive content, that saves us from that biological terror of the void.
We carve meaning from the chaos. We forge morality from the unknown. Religion endures because it offers a shield stronger than human frailty, a structure that does not bend under the weight of doubt. If we refuse to surrender this shield, we must recognize the full, exhausting weight of responsibility, knowing that there is no meaning waiting to be found, only the meaning we choose to declare.